Rolling, rolling, rolling on a river. Yeah. Are you all ready for this? Are you all ready for this? Let's do it. Hello and welcome everybody to the Crypto Mining Show, your one-stop shop for all cryptocurrency news from the perspective of a cryptocurrency miner. I am the host. I go by Blind Run on the internet and Matthew in real life. Today, we are going to cover all the fun stuff. Of course, there is a new opinion piece from a follow-up of part 1, which was called The Problem with Ethereum, which we have covered previously. Definitely check out that episode for that. We are now going to be covering part 2. I'm going in blind, hence of course my username, and so you'll be getting a genuine reaction to the article today for that. Then we have bunches of more news. We have Crypto.com getting listed or listing Flux. We have the Flux snapshot completed successfully. We have Argo Blockchain opening another mining facility in Texas. And we have 2 new miner releases that we're going to cover, as well as more information, more rumors surrounding the AMD Navi 31 RDNA 3 GPUs. And it looks like they may actually get PCIe 5.0 ahead of NVIDIA. Let's get into it right after a word from today's sponsor. I didn't sleep much. Today's sponsor is Crypto.com. Crypto.com is my go-to centralized exchange for liquidating my crypto assets. With their Crypto.com Visa debit card, I can load up my mined Ethereum to pay for power and other operating costs quickly while earning up to 8% cash back. In addition to the Visa debit card, there are additional fiat options, including wire transfers, to easily receive your profits. Crypto.com also offers additional services, including trading and even staking, to earn additional revenue on your investments. Join 10 million plus users buying and selling 100 plus cryptocurrencies at true cost by using my affiliate link in the description for a $25 funding bonus. Or enter referral code SOAT at sign up for the same bonus. Remember, cryptocurrency investment comes with significant risks, so do your own research. And welcome back, everybody. It is true, right now there is a consensus layer call going on the Ethereum Foundation YouTube channel. You can go check it out, but I would let you know that for mining, probably not much that we need to worry about with this one in particular, because this is the consensus layer call, which is going to be revolving around, of course, the beacon chain, but it's up there. You can go check it out. Maybe there'll be more information. I'll definitely watch it once we're done with the live stream this morning. So first things first, we do have Phoenix Miner, surprisingly, out of nowhere, coming out with a new miner. This one is PM6 or Phoenix Miner 6.2C. It was released 22 hours ago. Using the newer AMD RX 470, 480, 570, 580 kernels, even on older drivers, Windows driver 19.2.1 or newer, and Linux driver 19.10 or newer. If you want to revert to the older kernels on these drivers, use the new command line parameter, and it gives you the parameter here. They added a workaround for the SSL pools with self-signed or expired SSL certificate. You can now use the new command line parameter, weak SSL, for the pool specified by -pool, or weak SSL2 for the pool specified by pool 2, or the new weak SSL1 option for the pools in the pool's text file, which is basically their config file for the pools. Note that this option must be specified independently for each pool. If you use weak SSL on the command line or in config.txt, it won't affect the pool specified in epools.txt. Instead, you'll need to add the weak SSL1 for each desired pool in the ePools text file. Fixed a crash with NVIDIA cards on some older drivers, for example 460.79 and 460.89. If Phoenix Miner crashes or exits while showing initializing NVML, try the new command line parameter nvmalt. Validated support for AMD Windows drivers 22.4.2 and some other small fixes. If you want to go check out the new Phoenix Miner, definitely let me know how it goes. They have fallen pretty far behind compared to where they were at just a couple of years ago in 2019, where they were pretty much top dog. They've kind of fallen out of favor to other options such as for AMD, Team Red Miner, and for NVIDIA, T-Rex Miner, and for both, of course, you have LOL Miner, plus a plethora of other options, each with their own disadvantages and advantages. We even have another newer one that's been making waves lately that just did another release, and that's Bzminer version 9.0.2. In this release, GDDR5 memory tweak, so you can do the overclock memory tweak command line option there. You have memory timing tables display that you can set up in the config text file. You have a new TBS watchdog that you can set up in the config text file. New totals tab in the HTML GUI, which is graphical user interface. And obviously you access that usually through a local host port within your web browser. Here's some bug fixes. The solution latency reporting slowly increasing. Crash at startup in some cases. Networking performance, and Ixian not submitting found solutions after some time. I've been messing a little bit with Ixi. Ixi is really interesting because they do have a mobile application that is verified on the Apple Store and the Google Store. And it also doubles as a wallet, and not only your Ixi wallet, but also as an encrypted chat messenger application. So I've posted that information for my specific wallet address kind of thing on Twitter, because you can use that wallet address as the contact info. If you guys want to dig through and find it and message me on the app, definitely do that. It's pretty interesting. I'm obviously utilizing the app just to learn a little bit more about the project. And that was brought to my attention with the release of Bzminer version 9. So I have been trying to set up some of the mining stuff for it. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem extremely profitable at this time for Ixi necessarily. That doesn't mean that it won't be in the future or it's something you shouldn't pay attention to, just that right now at this time it's not necessarily extremely profitable. And the other thing about that is my understanding is for Ixi in particular, it's kind of like the TON deal. And if you guys don't remember, TON coin is essentially just basically dispersing or distributing the initial coin kind of minting process through proof of work. And then once that's completed, it will no longer be proof of work. Ixi is in a similar boat, except that it actually is using mining to mint the process and minting process, as opposed to TON, where they just kind of generated all of the coin and then stuck it into a bunch of smart contracts that then pay out the miners, which was really weird, but profitable for some time, of course. Ixi's sort of similar, but like I said, the actual minting process is going through a mining algorithm. I'm not exactly sure. Beyond that, we'll have to do a deep dive to give you guys more information on that, but that's kind of where it sits right now. AMD Navi RDNA 3 GPUs for high-end Radeon RX 7000 allegedly feature PCIe Gen 5x16 support, up to 128 gigabyte per second transfer rates. AMD Navi 31 GPUs based on the RDNA 3 graphics architecture are allegedly going to offer PCIe Gen 5.0 by 16 support for the high-end Radeon RX 7000 series GPUs. The latest information regarding the high-end RX 7000 graphics card lineup comes from Kepler L2, who has been digging RDNA 3 GPU information through various drivers and patches. Now, the same leaker is reporting that AMD Navi 31 GPU, the flagship for the Navi 3X lineup, is going to feature support for PCIe Gen 5 by 16 lanes. I wouldn't be surprised, the writer says, to see AMD first to the PCIe Gen 5 standard, considering they were the first to both Gen 4 on the 5000 series and Gen 3 on the old HD 7000 series. Just for comparison, the current AMD RDNA 2 Navi 2X GPUs feature PCIe Gen 4 support and come in a mix of by 16, by 8, and by 4 interfaces. Kepler only states PCIe Gen 5.0 support for Navi 31, though other Navi 3X offerings might also be getting the same protocol infused within their GPU I/O die, but with a limited interface on by 8 or by 4. The biggest benefit that PCIe Gen 5 brings is the doubling of the transfer rates from 64 gigabytes per second to 128 gigabytes per second. Currently, other rumors have pointed out that NVIDIA's RTX 40 series might stick with the existing PCIe Gen 4 protocol, even though they will feature the Gen 5 connector, allowing for up to 600 watts of power. AMD isn't expected to utilize the Gen 5 power connectors, so that's new. Initially, we had heard some rumors that they were going to. This is new information to me. That's actually super good for us from the mining perspective, that we won't have to worry about Gen 5 on the AMD 7000 series, potentially, and on their cards, and they might ship them with traditional connector design. Though, even if AMD does upgrade to the new Gen 5 12VPWHR standard, it will easily be adaptable to existing power supplies, and users won't have to worry about upgrading their PSUs, besides the power excursions that the new ATX 3 standard is designed to eliminate. Yeah, they kind of literally stated a point and then countered their own point. It's important to note that because of the power excursions on Ada Lovelace that we're expecting, ATX 3.0 is really going to be almost required at that point, because it will have capacitors and the upgrades needed to basically handle these power excursions. And the adapter plugs are really only going to work on the lower end GPUs in the Ada Lovelace lineup. Now, we don't really have a ton of power specifications yet confirmed or anything on the Navi GPUs. Maybe we'll find out here in this article, though. It makes sense to have the Gen 5 ready hardware within this year, as AMD has multiple platforms coming out that will take advantage of the new protocol. Just yesterday, AMD confirmed that their Zen 4 powered desktop and laptop chips will feature PCIe 5.0 support, so having the necessary Gen 5 I/O on RDNA 3 GPUs is going to improve the interconnectivity transfer rates by a big margin. With that said, AMD is working on multiple RDNA 3 IPs, as recently revealed in the latest Linux patches, and we also talk about various configurations with updated specs here. Here's some updated preliminary specs that they have listed. On the Navi 31, what we're looking at in 32, let's see, everything but the 21, right? We do see a 7700 XT potentially being around 200 watts, the 7800 XT being at 300 watts, and the 7900 XT being at 400 watts. The disappointing thing about, of course, this from the mining perspective is the limited bus width. I like big buses, and I cannot lie. Unfortunately, AMD 6000 series and on has been cutting their bus widths in favor of adding in infinity cache. And unfortunately, at this point, there hasn't really been any mining algorithms or miners that have basically accommodated to utilize and leverage the infinity cache at this point. With the upcoming release for the 7000 series, RDNA 3, whatever we want to call it by at this point, from AMD, I think it's going to be even more important to go ahead and try to get this solved, because the infinity cache is apparently going to essentially boost that memory speed significantly. I think on the 7900 XT, as we reported earlier this week, without Infinity Cache, you were looking at like 568 gigabytes per second, which is not that great if you compare it to something like a 3090 with almost a terabyte a second. But once added in for the accommodation of it on the Infinity Cache, the throughput can go up to 1.7 terabytes a second on the memory speed or the memory bandwidth. So I think it's going to be important to figure out how to leverage that. I am by no means a developer or anybody that would understand how to do it, but to me it seems like it should be something that should be figured out to leverage, whether that has to be at the actual algorithm level or just at the miner level for specific algorithms that maybe could be adjusted to take advantage of it. I don't have the information on that, but that's kind of where I lean towards for that. We have huge Flux news coming out everywhere. And that is basically because they have completed their snapshot. So the Flux AVIX and Flux Luna snapshot is now complete. Congratulations to everyone holding Flux for the Zelcore IO or staking it on Coin Metro. The new parallel assets will be distributed over the coming weeks, so we will need to stay tuned for that. That does mean, of course, at this point, none of the parallel assets have been activated on Miner Pool or any of the pools at this point, but we should start expecting 2 more parallel assets as miners to start being paid out. So that's kind of what we're looking at. Next, Flux has more information as they have now been listed on crypto.com. This is huge news for miners, getting closer and closer to the merge, because easy liquidation to cover power bills and other costs, as well as to purchase new equipment for mining, is paramount. And having an option within, of course, something like crypto.com or Coinbase makes this process a lot easier. But you kind of got to hold on here. I've already checked in the app, and at this time, deposits and withdrawals are not enabled for Flux on crypto.com just yet. My understanding, hold on here. My understanding is that it will be enabled at some point, but this is pretty much where we're at. The announcement was initially on Twitter, and there's an official announcement on the crypto.com website. Flux is now listed on crypto.com app. Join the growing list of 250 supported cryptocurrencies and stablecoins, including Bitcoin, Ethereum, Polkadot, Chainlink, VeChain, USD Coin, and Crow. Flux ecosystem is a decentralized Web3 cloud infrastructure that is designed to provide blockchain-based solutions and decentralized computing services. It allows developers to develop, manage, and spawn applications at once on multiple servers, providing a strong alternative to similar centralized services such as Amazon Web Services, AWS for short. Flux is a proof-of-work cryptocurrency that acts as a utility asset for onboarding the ecosystem, empowering the transaction of information across the ecosystem. It is used for purchasing resources, collateralizing nodes, and fueling transactions on Flux OS. So there you go. Pretty huge news, I think, for the mining community. Once we get, of course, deposits and transfers, that's going to mean a lot more than just maybe a price increase from the listing. Is there going to be a price increase or not? Really, at this point, because of the way the markets are, that would be kind of impossible to determine. We also had the snapshot complete, which means potentially if everybody already had their coins in the Zelcore or staked, what you end up having is, from my perspective, once they get the additional, whoever has that kind of in their wallets ready to go, once those parallel assets are dispersed out, I would assume some people will sell that after the pump that Flux had recently received. I think we are starting to go back down just in the markets in general right now. But we have more mining information, more mining facilities being opened up. This time, of course, we talked about Argo Blockchain a little bit yesterday, but Argo Blockchain to open flagship Texas mining facility next week, and the shares rise. The stock was up 12% on the London Stock Exchange. Crypto miner Argo Blockchain plans to start operations at its flagship facility in Texas next week, the company said in a Thursday filing with the London Stock Exchange. Argo shares jumped as much as 12% to 67.5 pence or 84 cents in US dollar in London trading as of 8:55 UTC. The company's American depository receipts trade on the NASDAQ. Helios, Argo's mining center located in Dickens County, is set to reach 200 megawatts of electricity capacity in its first phase of operation, which would increase Argo's computing power by 243% to 5.5 exahash a second, the filing said. In its second phase, Helios will use an additional 600 megawatts to reach 20 exahash a second. Argo declined to specify the day the mine will start operating and at what capacity. Quote, much of the information has to come through market disclosure, end quote, a spokesperson said. Delivery and installation of the 20,000 Bzminer S19J Pro mining machines it bought last September has started, Argo said. Some units haven't been delivered yet and are expected to arrive by October. Installation of another batch of Bzminer S19J Pro mining rigs Argo obtained through a machine swap with Core Scientific cores has started and will continue through July, the filing said. So basically we have, of course, as always, regardless of the price of Bitcoin, more and more hash rate going onto the network, obviously, which will in turn increase the difficulty of Bitcoin, thereby bringing those mining margins further and further down for ASICs. Now, a little while ago, on basically a Medium blog post by Tomer Strolight, we had a very fun opinion piece that was called The Problem with Ethereum. Well, he's back, and he has part 2. Now, part 2 is a lot shorter than part 1. If you haven't covered part 1, make sure you go back, and if you would like to hear me read it to you, you can do that, or utilize the link down in the description and go check out part 1. All we're going to do today is cover part 2. This will be a genuine reaction for the first time reading it because I have not read it. So if I make any mistakes, that's expected, but also you'll get a more genuine initial reaction from myself as well. So negatives, positives, it is the way it is. So here it is. Part 2. I'll be quick. I assume you read part 1. If you didn't, you should. The article has been extremely widely circulated, rising to the top of Hacker News, our cryptocurrency, and featured on a popular YouTube channel. Oh, which one's that one? Hey! Hey! Who's that guy? Who's that guy? I'm a popular YouTuber? All right, I'll take it. I'll take it. All right. And has turned out to be the most accessed article I've ever written. In it, I explained how, quote, Ethereum is not a decentralized peer-to-peer system. It is a system with an unaccountable ruling class exploiting the working class, end quote. And we've been talking about this more and more. Let's see what he has to say with the follow-up. I also pointed out it had, quote, complicity in the classes that benefit from the decisions of the ruling class at the expense of the working class, end quote. I also challenged those complicit classes to ask themselves what they thought might happen to them when the working class was milked for all they were worth by the ruling class. I wrote, quote, do you think the ruling class will suddenly stop seeking victims to enrich themselves? End quote. The article was published on August 6, 2021, a day or two after the London hard fork that was marketed as the, quote, ultrasound money monetary policy, end quote, by Ethereum's ruling class. Finally, I pointed out in the original article that Ethereum had become, quote, just like the corrupt fiat money system we're trying to escape, end quote. Ethereum's actual innovation making deflation as bad as inflation. The flaw with the fiat system isn't inflation per se. It is the inflated money supply is giving to insiders and privileged people who then benefit at the expense of those who lack that privilege. The flaw isn't inflation. The flaw is how alterations in the monetary policy affect the different classes. Ethereum's London hard fork and their alleged ultrasound monetary policy show how deflation can reproduce the exact same flaw. The London hard fork did not lower fees, it burned them. This fee burn reduces the outstanding supply of ETH, and this is what they call ultrasound. Fees on ETH, like on all blockchains, are a function of the data size of the transaction, not of the value of the transaction. So whether you're transacting $1 worth or $1 million worth of ETH, the fee is going to be pretty much the same. Now, if fees were negligible, that wouldn't be an issue, but fees on Ethereum are anything but negligible. Since the London hard fork, fees have shot up 400% on average, from about $10 per transaction to about $50 per transaction. And this is via bitinfocharts.com. In retrospect, the ruling class yet again failed to deliver on its promises. Everyone had been led to believe that this upgrade would make fees more predictable, yet nobody predicted that fees would increase 400%. Who was hurt and who benefited? ETH price in USD has appreciated since the hard fork by about 10%. In anticipation of the hard fork, it rose over 100%. However, the new monetary policy outrightly favors the wealthy class at the expense of the working class and the users of the system. Miners, the working class, now earn less for their work as fees are burned instead of rewarded to them. Read part 1 to see how unfairly this class has been treated. Those who now stake get new coin rewards, earning an estimated reward over 5% annualized on their staked coins, according to stakingrewards.com. If you're in the wealthy class and can stake on your own with the minimum 32 ETH or 130,000 US dollars or more worth of it, you won't notice the $50 to $100 fee to stake your coins, and you'll earn over $6,500 worth of new coins in a year. You'll earn it without doing any work at all, just like the people close to the money printer in the corrupt fiat system. However, if you're in the not wealthy Ethereum class, say you've only got a few $100 worth of coins, like $500, it will cost you $50 to $100 to transfer your coins in your staking transaction to the pool, plus any additional fees they charge. With your $400 of remaining value, you will earn a meager $20 of the new coins in the year. It will take you 5 years just to earn back your transaction fee. So it doesn't make sense for normal Ethereum class people to stake, even with staking pools. Just like everything we've observed before on Ethereum, the rich benefit at the expense of the poor. While deflation of the money supply is occurring, and this has led to a short-term spike in the value of ETH, it has come at the expense of the users of the system who now must pay the sky-high fees. It is, in fact, those burned sky-high fees paid by users of the system that are what account for all of the deflation and pay for the new coins issued to the wealthy class. Just as part 1 warned, the Ethereum class, which had complicitly done nothing for the miners when they repeatedly had their pay cut in the past hard forks, have now become the next victims of the ruling class, change the rules to further enrich the already wealthy class. To paraphrase a famous quote, first they came for the miners' money, and I said nothing because I was not a miner. Then they came for my money, and there was no one left to speak for me, end quote. This is actually a really good way to frame this, because what sets Bitcoin apart from Ethereum in one manner is that you have to make changes to the monetary policy on Bitcoin by getting consensus from the miners. And because the miners basically are going to have that control, they kind of protect you or the users of Bitcoin in a more valid manner, because they are incentivized to keep the network running good, maintain monetary policy, and be clear and transparent, etc. In the case of Ethereum, what you have is devs making the decisions, and thereby you end up in this mess that we're in. We can see in Ethereum's diabolical new monetary policy how deflation can be just as unfair as inflation when implemented to serve the interests of a wealthy and ruling class. Fees that are absolute prices, regardless of value, affect the poor in a much greater proportion than the rich. Reducing the money supply only by reducing that which was previously paid to the working class also enriches the wealthy class while impoverishing the working class. This is Ethereum's new monetary policy. It rewards the rich, staking rewards, burns the money previously earned by workers and paid for by the miners, mining fee rewards, and increases that money paid by the users, 400% fee increases. Is it immoral to own a large ETH stake? I have a friend who told me he recently bought a stack of ETH as an investment, and we discussed this issue today. He has no interest in using the Ethereum chain for any of its dApps, DeFi, NFTs, DAOs, DEXs, or any other things that run on it. He is in the wealthy class. When I pointed out to him that fees had increased dramatically, he immediately concluded because of the class he was in that this was a good thing, because it would cause the price of ETH to appreciate since more fees were being burned. When I pointed out to him that this was coming at the expense of miners and ordinary users, he was shocked that he hadn't realized this. He had been lured into the system of enrichment without it being explained to him who would be paying for his enrichment. He had entered the trade without malicious intent to exploit others, but being in the ETH wealthy class made him profit from and desire that which was harmful and unfair to the working and ordinary classes of users. As the saying goes, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Being in the wealthy class of Ethereum makes you complicit in exploiting the working class and the users of Ethereum. It is a system in which those classes can't really win and you can't really lose. So go for it if that's the game you want to play. But you're a hypocrite if you criticize the fiat system. You're involved in an equally unfair and unjust system. It's just one where you're now the beneficiary of the unfairness and injustice. Again, as I said in part 1, as a Bitcoiner, I find this intolerable and unacceptable. I especially condemn it on these grounds because Ethereum promoters prey on naive and not rich investors. This is a problem across cryptocurrency as a whole. I'm looking at you, Hex, SafeMoon, and Shiba Inu. When paid by the unsuspecting newcomers, those higher fees enrich those wealthy promoters even more at the newcomers' expense. It's shameful. But it has been this way in Ethereum and will not stop until the whole thing comes crashing down when there are no more suckers left to bleed. Whew. Fire. He's not wrong. A little passionate, but he's not wrong. Oh, man. I'm going to have to process this one for, I think, a while and reread it. I highly recommend it. Obviously, reading part 1. Part 1 is a lot longer. It kind of sets up the follow-up to all of these kind of informations. I want to say, Tomer, thanks for adding a link to my channel. That's awesome of you as well. So thanks for doing that. And I agree that this is the system that is moving in towards. Also, really, like, it does end up, even the investment return, even the return on investment, right, of staking Ethereum is getting closer to the fiat system, which is what? Well, it just requires a ton of money to make very, very little money in return, right? You have to stake 130,000 to earn 6,500 presumably, and that's provided, right, you don't have significant crash in the market. I guess you could just count it as return on investment of the amount of ETH that you get, right? But that is 6,500. That's a 20-year ROI on $130,000. And whenever those returns, and that's just like revenue, that's not cost of the node, cost of the AWS system that you're hosting it on. We've talked about all these problems, maybe cost of AWS or Azure or whatever hosting you decide to go with. It doesn't even include any of that cost, right? And then you got a 20-year ROI, and that is kind of how the system ends up kind of like leaning itself towards the managerial class, the people that don't do any of the skills. At this point, right, like you're pulling out any skills for infrastructure out from the people, and all you have, why would they do this, right? So when you talk about mining from that perspective, proof of work versus proof of stake, they always like to go towards, they mask everything with the environmental problems or whatever, which we read about yesterday, by the way. You need to go check that article out, talking about Jack Dorsey and Michael Saylor, addressing those issues and how they're kind of unfounded and exaggerated. But these are the kind of things that people do to mask what the true intentions are, which is basically you have to be extremely rich to generate any sort of wealth off of proof of stake in general. And what that ends up doing is basically falling into the same system that we've had for forever. Now, why does the managerial class do that? Well, because they already have a whole bunch of money that they can put that into, and they don't have any skills to actually make money, right? This is like the concept that we run into. This is the problem that we have across governments as well. You end up having a group of people that have no life skills. They can't fix your plumbing. They can't fix your car. They can't fix your roof. They can't deliver goods. They can't make your coffee. They can't do anything. So to make money, they just make it extremely hard for you to invest in anything. And then they invest into it at a point to where, right, they can make a living off of that, off of your backs, off of your skills. And if there is something that is skill-based that starts to strip value away, well, you got to get rid of that. You can't have that. You got to migrate from proof of work to proof of stake. Why do you got to do that? Because you can't have a working skill-based class be successful in anything, because that'll just hurt the system. It's extremely frustrating, and it's across the board everywhere in the world we live in now. Does that mean that you stop working hard or anything like that? No. Does that mean you don't go out and get skills? No, because all of these skills are going to end up being very beneficial here in the future, in my opinion. Especially all the skills you're learning in mining can help you in life in general. And that's going to come down to anything from budgeting costs, right, to IT infrastructure, somewhat coding. I mean, even though it's very basic stuff, building batch files, whatever that may be, networking, that sort of stuff is beneficial and will always remain relevant regardless of the relevancy of proof of work. And I still encourage you to participate in it. I just point out what I see going on in the world, and you may disagree, and you can let me know in the comment section below. I get a little bit frustrated when I look at it, but let's talk about mining profitability for the day. And it's better. It's definitely better. With 4 gigahash, we're at $150 and that is 0.052 ETH. It's not fantastic, but it's better. On the Flux side, it's not as good. On the Flux side, it's about $24 a day, and that is 15 coins. You do get the parallel assets of an additional $9 a day, so essentially coming out to maybe like 30 something bucks a day. At the end of the day, that's really between the two. The farm is doing about $180 a day. We're definitely staying under the $200 a day that we were hitting for a while. So we're going to see these profits begin to get lower and lower. I am trying to get my farm expanded. Obviously, you guys are aware of some of my issues with not only ventilation, but also just waiting on the power company to get my power installed. and I can't expand any further because we're capped out on power. And what's the only thing I can do to accommodate and keep covering costs? The only thing I can do is to expand, right? I can expand into some Bitcoin to hedge outside of that, maybe some other miners. But the only way that I can continue to obviously make the farm viable is to essentially expand it. So here's where you get, right, the tough get going at this point, because we're going to have tough times and they won't last. The tough people will. If you're going to go through this, if we're going to go through this, it's important to understand the concept here. As margins get lower, you have to increase the amount of hardware to go ahead and compensate for, of course, costs. And that is how this functions. If you get hung up, kind of like I've gotten hung up here, for example, you will end up being in a position where you could potentially, like I can potentially end up being to the point where I can't cover my costs. That's very nerve-wracking, especially when you're dependent on other people to complete work that needs to be done before you can continue that. So from my perspective, we're getting on the phones. We are blowing some people's phones up because we have to expand. I have to expand if I expect for this to continue, especially as things get more difficult, because obviously the Ethereum difficulty is going to increase because the bomb has gone off. So the Ethereum profitability is going to go down. That being said too, we are working on the great Ethereum migration. Hashtag TGE, who came up with it? But yeah, TGEHM. There we go. Anyways, it's up on Twitter. We have the Discord available. We have our first day planned. So once again, just a reminder for that, we are planning on testing hash rate migration off of the Ethereum network onto other networks. Part of everything that's going to be going on here is testing how that process is going to look, where people are kind of thinking about going and that sort of thing. The first test will be on May 13th at 10:45 a.m. Eastern, and we will be live streaming on this channel on the initial switch as well as the day after. We will also be doing it to wrap it up at the 10:45 a.m. Central Time as well. And hopefully we'll start to garner some sort of information on how this is going to process. Once again, I think the reason it's great to follow up everything that we've been talking about with the migration, the problem with Ethereum part 2, is to make it very clear to everybody that this is happening, right? Like, it's not potentially happening. It's not maybe happening. The move to proof of stake for Ethereum is happening. They are fully intentioned on doing that. It could get delayed, right? But do we sit there and continue to participate in a network and not start trying to figure out other options here, to our own detriment, supporting something that doesn't support us, right? Unfortunately, I think a lot of people will, but that doesn't mean that everyone will, and there are options outside of this. It's very frustrating, and obviously it can be quite nerve-wracking, I think, from the miner's perspective. Don't worry, I get you. I feel it. We're going to be taking some hits on revenue to do this test, and you know, if we work together, we can hopefully figure some stuff out. Benefits that'll come out of it is obviously more data for us to work with, stress testing for devs of different coins, of basically potentially at a lower level, what may happen post ETH merge to each individual coin, whether that be Flux, Ergo, Ethereum Classic, you name it. I'm not going to get in a coin war debate with anybody. Pick your coin. That's part of the thing too, is this first test. We'll get to see kind of where people think they're going to move. And then we can kind of extrapolate from there. Let's look at what to mine though. Speaking of other coins to mine, we have the RTX 3090 listed here. We're at 10 cents a kilowatt hour. Ethereum is at $3.52 a day after power. Cero is at $2.39 a day after power. Zell hash is at $2.42 a day after power. However, if you are mining it directly, It's at $2.16 a day after power. Conflux is at $2.12 a day after power. Equilibria is at $2.12 a day after power. And it continues to kind of go down from there. Ravencoin at $1.62. Rio at $1.91. I think down here we got Ethereum Classic at $1.58 and Ergo at $1.73 a day after power. Taking a look at mining pool stats and getting an idea, let's just go ahead and check it out. We're at 234 exahash a second on Bitcoin. It's settled down a little bit, but remember, we have a bunch of hash, like 20 more exahash coming online from Argo Blockchain in the short term here soon at some point, right? So this number is going to start going up again. And then in corresponding to that, you will have the difficulty go up as well. Let's look at Ethereum. And on Ethereum, we are at 1.07 petahash a second. Some has come offline since yesterday. I know some miners are starting to test different things, especially all you home miners, everybody that is in the Discord group. They're starting to get their rigs ready for the great migration. Let's take a look at Ethereum Classic. It's had a little bit of a dip down. It's at 26.56 terahash a second. A lot of people were asking me too about other ETH hash coins. It is important to note that Zilliqa technically is an ETH hash coin. It is sort of dual mineable. I think people get confused though, because you have to keep in mind that basically it only processes blocks once every so often. And essentially it's not really true dual mining. What it essentially is that you're mining Ethereum or Ethereum Classic. And then when it's ready to process its blocks, your miner will bump over to that and then bump back. The main pool that runs this is easel.me because it allows it to make it a little bit easier. I think K1 pool now though is also doing this to make it a little bit easier. And the hash rate can be quite deceiving on the distribution of hash rate as well. So it's not super helpful looking at mining pool stats. And that's because, for example, easel.me, this is also Ethereum hash rate, right? But when it bounces over to that, then all of a sudden it's 75% of the known hash rate. So kind of the name of the game there. Hopefully I explained that, articulated it to a point that is, at least in short, kind of something you can understand. Let's take a look at Flux. Flux had a recent increase. It's still maintaining. This is good news. We're at 2.23 mega solutions a second, 1 mega solution a second now on miner pool. Keep in mind that it's not as worrisome on Flux to see a mining pool with over 51%. There wouldn't be able to be a 51% attack because Flux also validates via nodes, and therefore it has a little bit more extra layers of protection from 51% attack. It's good to see it maintaining over 2.2 mega solutions a second. I'm happy to see it. I'll definitely be curious to see what happens over the next couple of weeks as we get closer to the great Ethereum hash rate migration. All right, so then we also have, let's see, Ergo. Let's look at Ergo. Ergo's at 16.03 terahash a second. I think it was pretty much around the same yesterday, so no big changes there. We'll look at Cortex because it's been on the list lately. 513.65 hash a second. And Ravencoin is at 3.1 terahash a second. I think that's a little bit of a dip down. Mining pool profitability on Ethereum for the past 90 days. Flex pool in first, mining pool hub in second, F2 pool in third. For the last 60 days, Flex pool in first, mining pool hub in second, F2 pool in third. For the last 30 days, mining pool hub in first, Flex pool in second, F2 pool in third. For the last 21 days, mining pool hub in first, Flex pool in second, F2 pool in third. For the last 14 days, we have mining pool hub in first, Flex pool in second, F2 pool in third. For the last 7 days, we have mining pool in first, Flex pool in second, and F2 pool in third. For the last 3 days, we have nano pool in first, Hivon in second, and F2 pool in third. And for the last day, we have Nanopool in first, Ethermine in second, and Hivon Pool in third. Asic miner profitability, the KD6 is taking huge hits. This is one of the reasons why I say, and I've been saying this for a while, you know, even though the profitability is low, the revenue is low on Bitcoin miners, it's still going to be more predictable than spending $60,000 on a KD6. And now it's, you know, making less than half of what it did when you paid $62,000 for that KD6. The KD5 obviously not looking much better at $40 a day. You'd be better off buying an L7, which is also doing $40 a day and doing Doge and Litecoin, which are slightly more established projects. Asic miners can be difficult because if you were buying when the market's way up, it makes this extremely difficult to really ROI at this point. You got to be careful with them. And then also they get outdated. Like ASICs are extremely, to me, extremely difficult and volatile. One of the things that I was going to bring up that's interesting, right, is like the L7 has made the L3 Plus kind of irrelevant, for example, when it comes to mining Dogecoin and Litecoin, right? We all kind of know this, but it launched during a bull run at a very high price. But if you really wanted to make the most money, you would have bought the L3 Pluses for like $175 before the bull run. So you kind of wait. Unfortunately, especially at the smaller level, what are you doing? You're waiting for these ASICs to kind of dump off, and you may get one cycle out of them. So for example, we get another super cycle in 2025. Let's say the L7 drops down in price to like whatever. You're going to try to calculate that out. Let's say it drops down to $500-600 or something by end of 2024. You'd want to try to make sure that you're going to basically ROI that before the end of the next super cycle, because more than likely, of course, any coins that are going to be popping off around then, and hopefully you buy an ASIC that has a coin that's going to pop off during the next super cycle, you need to pay that off before that super cycle is over. And even then, you also still risk like a mid super cycle launch of something like an L7 when you invested in a bunch of L3 pluses. It's a complicated game. And I think the safest bet is probably just calculating out what your ROI is going to be. And not even ROI, it's hard, but you know, calculate out what your revenue and your cash flow is going to be on the Antminer, like an Antminer, just basically a Bitcoin mining ASIC. Speaking of, the Antminer S19 Pro, still sitting around $12 a day on mining rig rentals, but it's not great. It's not great at all. If we look at some options, let's go ahead and scroll through and see what miners are on sale, if any new ones. We see a drop of about $10 on the S19 Pro. They're trying to bring those prices down over at BT Miners. So I guess that's a thing. Things like the Innosilicon A10 Pro, they got to come down a lot more. No other big sales going on here right now that I can see. We already noted the drop on the KD box to you guys yesterday, so we're aware of that. The only new drop in price is, oh, I'm sorry, it's $110 cheaper. Is that right? No, it's $10 cheaper. Is that right? Maybe it was $110. I don't remember what the actual last price was. I think it was $9,000. It might have been $8,900 though. I'd have to go in my Wayback Machine and look at it. Let's get into questions and answers for the day. Remember, super chats are never required, always appreciated, the first to be answered because they're the easiest to read. The channel has dropped in revenue significantly below what my expenses are. We'll be okay, and I'm going to keep trucking along. Just all I really need you guys to do, and especially so I can continue to report daily and make content for you guys, is to share out the content that you find helpful. A lot of what's going on is specifically just going to be affecting the entire crypto market in general, and that is that trends for Google searches on cryptocurrency, etc., are down, And that's just the way it goes. If we survive this together, we're going to get through it, and everything's going to be way better on the other side of the tunnel, in my humble opinion. Rabid Mining says, Asamatech, dropping my migration video in 1 minute. Awesome. We'll link that, and welcome to the channel. Make sure you guys go follow Mr. Rabid Mining and sub to his channel. Detroit Iris says, Asamatech, have you reached out to ERG devs about delay and difficulty, and have they replied? I've only talked to people that are in the community, not necessarily directly to a dev, though. I'm pretty sure they are aware of the issue, though. But I don't have a response from them. Carson Colbest says, Asamatech, is the Discord link up and running? Yes, the Discord link is up and running. There's over 2,000 people in there. Actually, I'm curious, what is it at now? Holy moly. This is the problem with Discord. I have like a ton of DMs now. That's okay. That's okay. Let's see. I need to appear offline, I guess. I don't know how to get total numbers. That would be, let's see, 441 online now. Dear Lord. A lot. There's a lot of people. Is that fair enough? There's a lot of people in the Discord already. Holy moly. I'll get an invite link though. Another one we'll throw in chat for you guys. Jesus says, Asamatech, let's migrate and take control once and for all. We just need to test, man. That's our big deal. Gandalf Gray says, Asamatech, that article really hits home after watching my grandparents and parents work themselves to death for zero wealth. Yeah, no generational wealth. I think even like there are people that are rich by many people's standards that really aren't rich if you consider the fact that really the rich that stick around is the generational wealth, and there's very few people that can generate generational wealth. Minor Illusion says, as son of a tech, I managed to break off a capacitor on your Aorus 3070 yesterday. Now you have to wait for caps tomorrow-ish. Good luck, and let me know how that goes. I haven't replaced a cap on a GPU before personally. I know you got to solder it up. Robert Hayden says, as son of a tech, love you, brother. We'll figure this out together. I joined the Discord and look forward to working together. I do too. I think it's going to be great. At the very least, we're starting to build up a community around this. GoldenEye Forever Calm says, as son of a tech, you mentioned Flux not ready for an influx of hash rate from ETH merge. Is this inexcusable considering the merge is somewhat obvious as to nearing completion? No, what I've said, so first of all, everything there feels way out of context. Second of all, nothing's inexcusable. Like, what are you going to do? Like, go tell everybody that they need to buy more Flux so that the price goes up so that we can feel all good? What will drive the price going up is where the hash rate moves to a certain extent, because miners will have an influence over that. But in general, when I talk about Flux not being ready, it usually has to do with the amount of difficulty increase and the current price. But it's impossible to predict necessarily the price influence that will be had. Obviously, when Flux went up here recently, it was able to increase its hash rate and remain that hash rate pretty steady. Same thing when we saw the pump out of Ethereum Classic. These are kind of the price discoveries that will begin to happen. I do think that the part of something good that will come from the hash rate migration that we'll be planning out is bringing attention to other projects and obviously starting to find more and push like price discovery a little bit further with it. Dan Sand says, as son of a tech, it's sad to see some YouTube miners are not joining our community. It shows they only care about their profits. Be careful. we're not going to throw shade anywhere. All right. I think that there's a lot of uncertainty that surrounds it, but I also think that there is, I don't know if it's a cognitive dissonance. I think clearly there's fear and worry surrounding the entire subject. There's also a certain portion of people that are just, I think it's like one of those things where it's like, ignore it and hope it goes away, right? Like sometimes if you got that, that bill that you got to pay that you can't afford, I don't know if you all have been there. I've been there, right? It's like, oh, shit, I can't afford it. I'll go try to donate some plasma tomorrow, or I'll go try to pick up maybe a little extra shift here or there. Maybe I can get a side job, but I don't have it right now. And sometimes when people don't have it right now, their natural inclination is just to go ahead and ignore it altogether. They don't start thinking like the examples I gave, right? They don't start thinking, okay, well, maybe tomorrow, I can't pay it right now, but that doesn't mean that I don't start working on it, right? Maybe I can donate the plasma. Maybe I can go mow somebody's lawn. Maybe I can do an extra Twitch stream, right? That's what I've been doing, right? I need a little extra cash. Maybe some people will go help me out on Twitch. Maybe I can go, hit this up and figure out how to make a little extra money there. That's kind of how I would flow with that. But a lot of people will just ignore that bill. And I've been guilty of that in the past too. And that's kind of the best correlation that I can give to it for the Ethereum merge when it comes to miners. There's a bill coming due that they can't pay and they're going to ignore it. And the problem is the only way that we figure out how to move forward is by not ignoring it. And I understand the perspective. I'm offering empathy towards that position, right? It's stressful. Max Barbell says, ask Tech, I have an opportunity to buy some 6600s for under 300, 5 of them in total. Do you think it's worth it to build out? You would have to get another board and PSU. I mean, 6600s for under 300, you are technically getting the best Ethereum hash rate to power ratio, the most efficient kind of cards on the market. They're pretty awesome. Under 300 sounds good. It's not financial advice. It's also hard to judge where the GPU market is going right now too. So would I purchase them? I would lean more towards NVIDIA GPUs personally. The 6600s aren't too terrible on Flux. They hold their own, but they're not going to be anywhere near, say, specifically something that's from the green team. Black Cat Crypto says, got the Discord working for me. Awesome. Welcome aboard. Colton says, ask Tech, what does an increase of mining hash rate on Flux have on a Flux node profitability? That's a good question. That's something I think I would have to ask Daniel Keller. Thanks for bringing it up. I will actually be copying this question. I don't think it has an effect because I believe those are separate as far as the way they process they process them. But I'll have to definitely get confirmation from you. I think obviously the hash rate increase is going to affect the profitability on miners specifically. I don't know that it would have, and I want to say I don't think that it would have any on the nodes necessarily, but I'm not positive on that. Golden Wolf says, good morning, mining brother from Seattle. Good morning, good sir. Miner Illusion says, ask Tech, I'm going to email you a pic of the giant generator, so be on the lookout. All right, I'll try to look through my email. I feel like I keep missing a lot of them. C-Script says, ask Tech, how does proof of stake actually work? I've read and watched things about it, but it doesn't make sense to me. How could just staking ETH fill the role of computers doing proof of work? It's confusing. It's still going to have to use some processing. That's why it's on virtual private servers or whatever. There is some CPU processing that's going on there. Not a lot, right? Not as much as proof of work. But it all validates it off of basically the chain has to be long. That's also why the initial proof of work moves, and even to today, There are projects like Ixian that we were talking about at the beginning of the show, for example. I want to make it clear that, like, even then, most of these projects that are going to be proof of stake in the future have to use proof of work in the beginning, because the proof of work portion is how you fairly generate and distribute the currency. And that's like pretty much a fact at this point, that the only way you can fairly distribute the currency is through some sort of proof of work method. And this is why coins, when they're trying to launch and be fair, like Ixian, that still want to go to proof of stake later on, they utilize proof of work to generate that initial length of it, right? Because once you have the chain long enough, a lot of transactions, and all of that coin, all of that currency is tied up and been used or whatever, you can start using those hashes to validate new transactions, right? But it still will always, I think, end up being impossible for proof of stake to distribute fairly, or especially mint fairly. Dismas T says, Asamvitek, good afternoon from Ukraine. Does it make sense to buy a 3090 at the moment, since it is more ETH targeted? 3090s can run on Flux pretty good. They're about 110 solutions a second. People there talking about crypto crashing. First of all, go look at the entire world right now. Unfortunately, I would highly recommend grounding yourself in some stoicism. You're going to need it. And we're all going to need it. And trying to prepare your family the best you can. The good news, if you're a skill-based worker, you're going to have skills to help you get through this. Auto mechanic, plumber, farmers. You're good, but also go listen to the Sovereign Individual and get an idea, get some basis for what is going on. There will be some crypto hedges against everything, I think. In my humble opinion, there will be. But, you know, that it's definitely not going to be like the entire crypto market. There'll just be a few that rise to the top. I think we all know one off the top of our heads. But if you want to look at the markets right now, sure, Bitcoin's at 37,152. Down 4.59%. Ethereum's at 2,751. The entire market is starting to look pretty much red, except for the USDT, right? I would expect more to be happening over the day as well. More than likely, except look at this. Tron is up 3%. I guess we could also look at that for the past 24 hours. This is kind of impossible to do, though. You could go watch a trading channel. I wouldn't trust them that much either, though. You're going to have a lot of people freaking out. Zilliqa's up 8%. Anchor is up 10%. Tron's up 2%. Uniswap's up. Ethereum Classic is up. Zcash is up. Axie Infinity's up. There you go. All right, let's get back to some stuff. I wouldn't necessarily call this a crash right now, though. Looks pretty normal. Colton says, at Sanvatech, I'm an economic geologist, so I mine in the real world and online. Huzzah. There you go. Well, we had, what? A lot of international distress over the past couple days. Wasn't there something from North Korea, right? What was that, yesterday? Then we had whatever's going on today. I haven't double checked anything. But stay frosty, boys. Do you have any questions about cryptocurrency mining or crypto in general? If not, just remember May 13th, 10:45 a.m., we're going to do a migration test. Yeah, traditional markets are crashing as well right now, guys. There's a place in France. All right, gotcha. Danson says, Ask Tech, we need channels on the Discord for at least the top alt mineable coins. We have a channel for posting what you think you're going to mine. I don't want to do too many. And then we have like a section where the YouTubers can post the tutorials for individual coins. Babblefish says, Ask Tech, your ETH hash rate has doubled. Well, who did that? And I guess thank you. I'm not seeing it. I only see 4 gigahash a second still. So I don't know what you're talking about, but thanks. If somebody did decide to do that. Aggregator Visual says, Ask Tech, I appreciate you setting up the migration in motion. Lots of greedy people won't participate, but it's a great initiative. I think we got to do something, you know, like if I did cloud migrations, right? That's what I did for a living, like on-prem to the cloud. And the thing there was like, you could do a lot more testing. This is kind of unknown waters, right? Because we have basically equipment that has 0 redundancy, 0 backup, and 0 ability to do anything on like I mean, we could do a test net, right? But from the miner's perspective, test nets don't help us out a ton because it's not going to be super indicative. And then we're still losing money because it's not like you have, you know, for example, like Ethereum, you have your test nets. Basically, all you got to do is fork the code, move it over, test over there. Or coding is a lot easier to go ahead and test all that stuff. You know, if you're doing cloud migrations, you're probably just migrating VMs from on-prem to the cloud, but then you can always fail back down. Miners don't have that type of equipment, right? Because miners don't have the wasteful failover equipment. It's not like we can be like, oh, okay, well, you know, move this over here. Now you can do splits like 50-50, sure. Like I'm on a little bit of Flux, a little bit of ETH. But it's a difficult problem, and I think at least setting something up like we have to start discussing the problem and start figuring out how we're going to solve it is the only way that we're going to get there. And like, you can solve any problem, you just have to recognize the problem first, right? Real Virgo says, Ask Tech, if you would be on a budget, would you choose a 10 series or a 20 series card for mining Flux? It depends on which card in the series. The 1070 specifically in the 10 series or the 2080 Ti in the 20 series. Babblefish says, Ask Tech, it's coming. Dun, dun, dun. Paul Gale says, Discord will not accept my invite. You could get with Discord support. I don't know other than that, bro. I don't know what you mean by it won't accept your invite either. Discord is pretty much, I mean, if it was Rocket Chat, I actually have control over Rocket Chat. I don't have control over Discord. It's part of the reason why we're pretty much only using it because everybody uses it and we're using it for this initiative only. I have very little knowledge of Discord, to be honest. That's why I got all these other guys in here to support it. You know, all these other Rabid and all those guys, right? Crypto Raz says, Ask Tech, do you have any thoughts or videos on the new Intel GPU coming out? I've heard it's going to be comparable to a 3080, but $100 more on release. I haven't heard any of those rumors. I do know that there's potentially a $500 version with the 256-bit bus, which would potentially give us to like somewhere between 60 and 70 mega hash a second for $500, which seems like a pretty good deal. But those are all rumors and conjectures and nothing I can prove. If that does prove out to be true, though, it'd be some really good mining cards. Martin says, ask Simontek just for a second. Let's pretend miners have their own coin or project. What would that be like? So that's not unlike anything that's really happened before, right? What's an example? Caspa is the most recent example. Caspa was built by a miner, you know, for miners, that sort of thing, but it will be moving to optical proof of work. So, but it's an example. This is something that happens. Somebody says, "That son of a tech, are you going to get into other Ethereum Classic NFTs?" Not at this point. You know, I'm happy with my Classic Apes. Dan Sand says, "Ask son of a tech, out of all the mineable coins, which one do you think has more goals implemented, promising to be the next profitable?" There's like the top three, right? Like Flux, Ergo, Ethereum Classic is where I would lean towards. Ethereum Classic, because it has all the integration into MetaMask, large exchanges for liquidity, that sort of thing. NFTs coming on. It does need a marketplace. I hear that's coming soon. Most translatable from Ethereum. It just makes sense. Flux, because it's really innovating on what Web3 does. It's pretty much the only one that really has like an alternative to something like AWS or Azure. And to my knowledge, from what I see, they're the only ones that do have that. So obviously bullish on Flux from the technology perspective. There's actually shit out there that's working, you know. It's not like a lot of these other ones, like most of these Web3 companies, they're like, just email us and we'll talk to you about moving to Web 3.0. No, they're doing it. All the rest, nobody else is actually doing it. So whenever people talk trash about Flux and say, like, I don't know, go with Anchor or whatever it is, Avalanche, it's like, man, bro, they're the only ones proving that they have anything. So that's what they have going on. And then Ergo, I'd throw it like more back into the bucket with Ethereum Classic from the perspective of it's got the NFT marketplace. It's got the DeFi. It's going to be integrating its DeFi, obviously, with like Cardano. It's got the Cardano Oracle going for it. It's got a lot going for it. The difficulty thing needs to get figured out, I think, but those are kind of the three that I look at from a technical standpoint that I would say, okay, those seem to be sticking around and will be functioning and have the eyeballs on them and have the teams to implement them. So that's kind of the top three. Obviously, not financial advice. Also, buying anything in crypto right now could be extremely risky. So there's all that. Telescopium says the link for Discord and chat worked today, but the link in the video yesterday doesn't. I'll try to update it. I probably have to put it on like unlimited invites or something. What mining hardware do you have your eyes on currently? Bitcoin ASICs. DK says, ask Simontek, what's your final thoughts on the R7 5800X3D? I think that from what I saw, me personally, I think that it does make sense. It just doesn't. Okay, how do I put this? If you were talking about retail prices on CPUs and just retail versus retail, it makes sense. But we have to take into account that a lot of gamers are upgrading from 3900 XTs, etc., to that. Because the hash rate is pretty similar, if not identical across the board between the 5800X3D where it matters, meaning in cash, that sort of thing, you know, you're going to be better off buying a used 3900 XT than a 5800 X3D. I covered that in my review too. Tim L says, ask Simontek, is Raven dying project, or will this last halving see some price discovery on the next bull run? All coins, even if they're dead, see price discovery during a Bitcoin super cycle. So unfortunately, you can see completely dead coins get huge pumps that make no sense. From the Raven coin community, they're still around. They're still pushing for what they think, you know, all that sort of thing. It could come to fruition that, you know, Raven coin ends up making waves in the layer 1 NFT process, that sort of thing. I've been of the mindset that you more want to do like, I don't know, layer 1 and then you build a layer 2 and a layer 3 on top, right? But that's just me. Like, that's kind of why I lean towards like Bitcoin maximalism to a certain extent. Colton says, at Summit, why is mining Monero so unprofitable? Confusing how proof of work works for that if no one can mine it profitably. Because I think at the end of the day, that's more of what you're going to want, is not necessarily super high profitability, but extremely high distribution of the actual processing of the transactions. If I think about it from the perspective of what's the most fair, what would change the monetary policy for the best for all people, what's more distributed, lower payouts to more people, if that makes sense. That's why I think proof of stake is going the wrong direction from proof of work, right? Because it's lower payouts to fewer people, which is even more wild. But I think like your goal would be lower payouts to more people over more distribution, if you want to fix anything. Wersetta Stone says, Ask Navatek, I'm trying to participate in the Flux migration. We're not just migrating to Flux, but need help with the overclocks for your Flux. 1080 Ti is doing more solutions a second than one of my 3080s. Any help or advice you can lend? Check your temperatures. Turn off your overclocks. Check your temperatures. Emin says, Ask Navatek, what would you think ETH fork... Would you think ETH will fork into proof of work and proof of stake concurrently? No. Dan Sand says, that's Summit favorite Flux pool. Miner pool is this is like my favorite personally, because I have the best connection to it. But as it goes with all pools, watch my video on how to test your pool latency, and that's really what you want to be doing. Andre Morris says, ask Samatech, which crypto coin will test for hash rate migration? Whichever one you want. Dan San says, ask Samatech, do you hold any ETH just in case raise in price? No, I hold 0 ETH. And I won't hold any ETH. Matthew Gray says, hello, is NiceHash good for a gaming PC? If you want to just kind of get your feet wet into mining, that's fine. I would encourage you to start learning how to mine coins directly so that you start to educate yourself on how blockchain works. But thanks everybody for watching. I'm going to hit it. I'm pretty tired. Hit that like, comment, subscribe, and notification bell down below the channel. I command you to grow. Wise words from CT Fletcher. I will see you next Tuesday. And everybody talking about the crash. The crash is going to get worse. Don't worry about it. It is what it is. Life goes on. Go look at the traditional markets today. Ow! Adios. Oh, Babelfish says, there it is. Let me refresh. We're apparently getting a donation of hash rate. We have a donation of hash rate, so I want to say thanks. I guess Babelfish, if that's you, thank you. It says 8.49 gigahash a second. I will definitely take that additional help right now. So thank you, good sir. Thanks for the donation. And I will see you guys next Tuesday.